Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to talk about anxiety again. And today we talk about how nutrition can affect your anxiety. And for this topic, I have invited Melissa to join us. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
And tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Sure. Well, I'm coming to you from Arizona. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I've got a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'm a holistic health and life coach. And I help women and teens find freedom from the struggle with food. So that's a little bit of who I am and what I do.
Hmm. Perfect. And that's why you have the experience with all the food. And you just mentioned teenagers as well, because that's a lot of times when people have the anxiety and the food and everything that adds to their anxiety.
Huge connection there.
Mhm. Okay. Let's start from the basics. From what kind of how does food even affect anxiety, and what foods are the ones that affect it?
Yeah, so we're all connected. The amazing thing about our bodies is that everything is connected. We're not functioning independently and like siloed off, it's all connected. And so the connection between food and anxiety is that the gut is considered a second brain. And so what you feed, what you put into your stomach, into your body is going to affect your mental health, how you feel, how you show up. And so there is a huge correlation between food and mood. And there's a lot of foods that we can eat to cause us to feel more anxious. And there are also foods we can eat to cause us to feel more calm and less chaotic and less stressed. And that's where I prefer to be. So
Hmm.
correlation between food and anxiety is huge. And I don't think it's talked about enough, to be honest with you.
No, not at all. And even like doctors and everything, I'm always amazed. Like doctors don't talk about food that we have to eat. Like I was just talking with another guest in one podcast about how doctors after surgery they send people home with all those painkillers with no exercise or diet routine that they would have, only painkillers after surgeries, which is actually people should come. I think they have to focus on, well, they have the medication that they need, but they also have to focus so much about what they're going to eat afterwards and what the exercise they're going to do.
Yeah. And that creates stress on the body, and your body can't heal in a stressed out state. So that's just crazy that that is happening.
Hmm. So, how did your journey start as well with yourself with connecting anxiety and food? Did you
Yeah.
have
So
your own experience?
I did. And I had no idea the two were connected because I had always thought that food was only about weight. And so you eat certain foods to lose weight, you eat certain foods to gain weight. And the rest of the impacts were just completely unknown to me until my own journey, where about 13 years ago, I had a newborn baby who wasn't sleeping through the night. So I was already exhausted. Our 2-year-old daughter had some undiagnosed food allergies and sensory processing disorder, and my husband was traveling for work. So I was very frazzled, very anxious, very exhausted. But on top of that, I was diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. And so because of that, had a lot of anxiety and things I hadn't worked through. So I met with a naturopath who really taught me about the importance of supplementation and nutrition on the body, and all of that, and changing my way of eating changed everything for me. I became more calm, less stressed, less anxious, less overwhelmed, and it was really quite refreshing. So that's my own journey and why I do what I do, because people need to know that food can affect every part of your being.
Mm-hmm. Especially right now, different cultures are different, but most of the stores in America, they don't really have even what we said, they don't even sell food.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of packaged food with ingredients and chemicals and preservatives that our bodies don't know what to do with them. Our bodies were not designed for that. And I think that's what contributes to the anxiety is we're putting things in our body that it doesn't recognize as food. The body doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's not a good place to be either.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. One of the ways that the way I eat, Melissa, that's, and I learned it I don't even remember how I learned it or how I started saying it because of that junk food or trash food. So I always say to myself, like, my body is not, and my daughter's is not a trash can.
Hmm.
So I always say, my body is not a trash can. So there's no reason for me to put it in.
Yes. I love that because the input equals the output. And if you're putting things in that your body doesn't recognize, that don't nourish it and energize it and make it feel good, you're not going to feel good. Your output's not going to be good. So I love that analogy that you use.
Hmm. What are some specific foods that you will usually bring out for what we definitely should not eat?
Yeah, one is sugar. I mean, and that was my vice. Like I was an 8-year-old little girl and I was hiding all of the candies, the cookies, the treats in my room because it did make me feel better when I was overwhelmed. It was how I dealt with anxiety was to eat because it
Hmm.
soothed me for a moment. What I didn't know was that not only did it soothe me, but it also caused my blood sugar to spike, which affected my mood. So I was on this emotional roller coaster because my blood sugar wasn't stable. So sugar is definitely one that affects anxiety. For some people, the amount of caffeine they drink can have a huge impact. There's also correlations with gluten and anxiety. And again, we're all different. We're all unique. There might be certain foods that make me more anxious than they will for you, for example, but those are just three of the main ones.
Hmm. Is there any type of sugars that I think our body needs?
Yeah. Fruits. I mean, fruits are a great example because they're natural, they're not processed. Fruit is a great form of sugar. If you do eat sugar, I do. I don't believe you can be completely sugar free
Hmm.
because I just don't think that's realistic. But
Hmm.
coconut
Yes.
sugar is a great alternative because it helps to stabilize your blood sugar. Honey's a great natural sweetener, as is maple syrup. So those are some options as well.
Hmm. Are there honey that's in the store and a maple syrup that's in the store, or how do you choose the healthy one? Because I think some of them are just sugar and like maybe just 10% honey.
Yeah, my preference is to find somebody local that has
Hmm.
honey because that's also good for allergies to have local honey. It helps your body build immunity to the allergies. So find somebody local, preferably not at a store. And then for the syrup, again, if you know of somebody who has their own, maple syrup business and can do that, great. But if not, there are some. You want to look for those that don't have high fructose corn syrup and it's just plain maple syrup. That's the only thing the label should read is maple syrup, nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking when you were saying find somebody local, if like farmers markets,
Mm-hmm.
probably the best way to go shopping for food as well.
100% farmers markets. Anything local is a good bet.
Hmm. And I was thinking going in a farmer's market can actually be soothing thing for somebody with anxiety as well, because that's a nice. Usually, farmers market is much calmer environment than the grocery store where you just have things all around you that just the labels and writings and everything that just drives you crazy.
Music, people. I mean, the grocery store can be very overwhelming and very
Hmm.
stimulating. So the farmers market is a great alternative. A lot of times they're outside, so you're getting some fresh air. You're kind of connecting with nature, and yeah, I like them.
Hmm. Hmm. So, how about teenagers? You said
Mm-hmm.
you're working a lot with teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Is teenagers coming to you with more anxiety problem or the weight problem, or how do they think about nutrition?
Yeah, it's interesting because the teenagers I work with have done a lot of the stress or the emotional or the binge eating. And so that's connected to the anxiety and the overwhelm and not knowing what to do or how to handle things. And so they're kind of using food to soothe or to stuff the feeling because they don't know how to handle it. So, not so much the weight, but more of the emotional side of it.
Oh, I think that's adults as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people they don't eat food because eating food, like eating nutritions and getting nutritions, they just eating because of the habit or because of the soothing thing of it. So they use
Mm-hmm.
it as substitute for doing something else.
100%. And I think too it's tricky because food is necessary. We need food to survive. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something like drugs or alcohol or cigarettes that people turn to that are, not needed. You don't need those things to survive, but food you need to survive. So I think that's where it gets kind of tricky because we can justify it and say, "Oh, I need to eat." We do, but why are we eating and what are we looking for and what are we eating? It's back to your example of this is not a trash bag.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And another thing as well, the way you said, like, we can't get rid of the sweets completely. Another thing that I use is I try, and I do, not, I've learned the different foods and everything. 90% of the food that I eat is good food.
Mhm.
So when I do eat something not good, the 10%, I don't feel guilty because I know most of the time my body gets all this good food and it's nutrition that it needs. So the way I understand it, then tell me if it's right. Because my body has so much healthy food, it can better digest that little 10% of the what I have my like chocolates or cake or candies and chips or something occasionally.
Absolutely. And food isn't good or bad. I think that's another thing we can do to cause stress and anxiety on
Oh,
ourselves is we can start to judge the food or label the food. And then we get caught in this, oh my gosh, should I have this? Should I not? And food is food. It's meant to be eaten and enjoyed. I think it's more of the why behind your eating it. What am I eating this for? What am I looking for? What do I need? And kind of the relationship with food. So, no, I think you're totally right on with that.
mm-hmm. So what is it's probably also the same thing that people have guilt when they're eating the things, but they're still eating.
Mhm.
So why do they still eat if they feel guilty about eating the things?
That's a great question. And I think part of it is because so much of our relationship with foods and the foods that we go towards, there's an emotional attachment there. I have a woman I worked with who would find herself feeling stressed and anxious and overwhelmed and eating cheese and crackers. She doesn't even like cheese and crackers, but she was
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I doing this? And I said, let's figure it out. And so, come to find out, she would be a little girl and her family would always get together and they would have these family gatherings where everybody was connected and happy and they would eat cheese and crackers. And so for her, she associated the cheese and crackers with happiness, not being stressed. So it makes sense when she felt stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, she went to the cheese and crackers. So a lot of it's our own emotional attachment to the food and what it signifies for us.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, you just mentioned the family habits of eating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. So how do people can create um, healthy family eating habits?
Yeah, and that's a tough one because I feel like so many of us, like maybe we grew up with the mindset of, oh, we have to clean our plates. And so we pass that on to our kids. Or we're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I hated that rule. I'm not going to do that. But I think part of it is really the environment around the table. Like, what is the environment like? Is there a lot of fighting? Is there a lot of arguing around the table? Or is it more connecting, conversational, people excited to be together? I think it's more about that and less about what we eat because one thing I've worked really hard with my kids on is to honor their hunger and fullness. And so that means they might not be hungry for dinner when we sit down to eat. And so I'm not going to force them to eat because their body's saying they're not hungry. Now, what I'll do is I'll say, you may eat that when you are hungry. I'll put your plate on the counter for you. But I think it's just all about like honoring everybody's individuality, but creating that peaceful environment, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. I totally agree with that. I don't think like when people forcing the kids or
Mhm.
anybody to, because they become adults who forcing themselves to eat when they're not even hungry, and then they just eat with no emotions, no nothing. They just put things in their mouth with not that's not food, that's not anything,
Yep, you're
just
totally
emotion.
right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't serve anybody.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the first thing maybe they should break that habit, like first habit to break as well, just to instead of just eating, paying attention actually how you eat as well.
Totally, because it's more about how you eat than what you eat. So if you're eating in a stressed out state, your body can't digest, it can't metabolize, it doesn't absorb the nutrients properly. So the way that you eat and the condition that you eat is super important, especially if you do have anxiety or stress or overwhelm. You want to make sure that your body's getting the nutrients that it needs. And if you're stressed and overwhelmed and eating in that state, it's not absorbing fully.
Mm-hmm. So how do people with this anxiety, where did they start from?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to get curious, because I think we can be so anxious and we can be so overwhelmed, and then we judge ourselves and we start this shame spiral. But I think a great starting point would just be to step back and say, what is my relationship like with food? Am I eating under stress? Am I eating to feel better? Am I eating when I'm hungry? And just kind of ask yourself some questions, because our relationship with food is a relationship. We just haven't been
Mm-hmm.
taught that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the great starting point is to get curious and kind of assess the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the first step. So, and the second one is, I believe, go to the grocery store. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
in a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
It's, most people, if possible, start going to the farmer's market, make it in a habit. But most of the time, we still go to a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So, what should we look at that's easy?
Yeah. Easy is fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, that section, it's usually towards the front in most stores where all of the fresh food is. That's the easiest, because you don't have to look at what's in it. You don't have to look at what ingredients it has. You know that it's food in its natural form, and so that would be the easiest. Then the next upgrade from there, if you will, would be to kind of shop the parameter of the store, so the outer edges. And then if you have to go in the middle, because you probably will, just look at the ingredients on the label. Just understand what is in the food, what you're putting in your body, and how it affects you. The simpler, the least amount of ingredients, the better.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking maybe the way what I look in when I go to grocery store, I look at added sugar. I don't look at all the things. I look added sugars. Then I look if there's any vitamins at all. If it just says 0, 0, 0, it's actually interesting. It does list the vitamins on
Mhm.
it, but then it has like a number 0 on it. So what's the point?
No,
Interesting.
they're telling you it's not really food.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like tricks the people. When I buy something that has bread or something, I always look for real flour
Mhm.
instead of when they say enriched flour or
Yes.
bleached. Some of them are bleached. So I was like, okay, now I'm eating bleach or what?
No, no, nobody needs that.
So that's the. So what is what would be Melissa, some kind of breads or something that, like, if you go to that baking section,
Mhm. Mhm.
what, because a lot of people still like that kind of, I do as well. I like at least to have some kind of bread in my
Mhm.
house.
Yeah.
I like different types of breads actually in my house.
Mhm.
But what should people look for when they look baking item?
Mhm. I think it depends on the person. There is a correlation between gluten and anxiety. So if that is the case for you, you're going to want to do gluten free. That's a great alternative. If you are okay with the gluten and you can tolerate it, then again, you just want the least amount of ingredients possible. And you want to make sure you understand them and what they are, and that it's not bleach that you're putting in your body.
Exactly. So after that, so we got the understanding of the food, and then you go to the grocery store and everything, and now attach the emotions.
Mhm.
So how do people understand their emotions around the food?
Mhm. I think again, it goes back to being curious and maybe asking yourself, kind of noticing your habits, like the cheese and crackers example. You find yourself eating something you don't like, or maybe you're not even hungry, and you ask yourself, what am I looking for right now? What does this food bring up for me? And it might take you a while to figure it out. I used to love to have some decaf coffee at night with this little mug cookie cake I would make. And come to find out, I did that because it reminded me of a candy that my grandparents gave me as a kid growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, this is what that's for. I don't really need it anymore. And so I think it's questioning your relationship with food and why you're eating certain things and what you're looking for, what they remind you of, what you're needing, because usually those cravings and those memories are associated with childhood, and there's some sort of positive association that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So, but what do you substitute them with then?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I think, again, it goes back to, okay, am I even hungry for this? Am I just eating this because it reminds me of that? Because a lot of times we'll have a craving and we'll think it's a physical craving and we need to eat. They might not always be physical cravings. Maybe we're craving more time by ourselves. Maybe we're craving more time with people. Maybe we're craving more movement. Maybe we're dehydrated. And so if you can kind of decipher your cravings, that'll tell you what you need and what your body needs at that moment. But I'm a big fan of not depriving yourself, but having some healthier upgrades. So for example, if you craved ice cream and you loved ice cream, maybe find an ice cream that has less ingredients, that has, less sugar and is more like whole foods for you. That would be a really good alternative. You could even make your own ice cream out of bananas. I mean, there's so many things you can do to kind of upgrade and make it a little bit healthier and still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And I also, Melissa, I think portions are important, because in a store they sell those, and it's more common in America, in Europe, and some other, even I think Asian countries, Japan, and you can buy just single one item, and here you have to buy 6. You have to buy packages. You can't buy just one. Some things you can, but usually you have to buy a big package, and that makes you eat more.
Yeah, we like to supersize things here. I mean, let's be honest. It's like go big or go home, which it doesn't really serve anybody either.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Especially
think,
with food.
yeah, and I think with that, if you are really focused on your food, like a lot of us will mindlessly eat. We'll eat on the go, or we'll eat in front of our phone or the TV. But if we can just stop that and really kind of tune in and focus on connecting with the food and eating it and asking ourselves, am I full? That's going to indicate to you where the portion should be. Because just because you have the whole plate of something doesn't mean you have to eat it all. It's more about, am I full? What's my body telling me I'm ready for with this?
Mm-hmm. And plan, like, maybe I'm saying, I like sweets sometimes, and now when they come in a big package, I'll say, like, I'm only gonna eat one of those a day, or like not even one every day, but like in one day I'm only gonna allow myself to have one. And after a while, you just get used to it, that new habit.
Yeah. I have another coach who has a great suggestion. I'm like, this is genius. If that happens, like for me, it was Oreos. Those I had to eat the whole sleeve at once. I don't know why. But instead of doing that, take individual packs and portion them out. So you're having 2 cookies at a time instead of the whole package. Because I know for me, like if it's there and it's open, oh, well, I might just have one more. And then before you know it, you've eaten way too many. So I love that idea of portioning out your serving and what will make you feel satiated and satisfied.
Mm-hmm. I like that as well. One thing is portioning out, and I have another one as well. When there's a big package, let's say a big package of chips or something, you don't take the package. You take like a plate or a ball, and you put the amount out.
So good. So good.
Mm-hmm. You put like only certain amount of the whatever you're planning to eat on that plate, and you put the big package away, because, like you said, when you take that big package out or sleep, then you're gonna end up pretty much eating all of it.
And then you don't feel good afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And for the kids as well, what is a good advice for moms to look for their kids? What to give to their kids?
Yeah, I think it goes back to food in its most natural form. So fruits, vegetables, nuts, protein, meat. I think so many times we think, oh, it's a protein bar, it's healthy. Might not be. Again, it goes back to the ingredients and what's in it. But I love simple. Just keep it simple. Like foods at their natural form that you find at the farmer's market: fruits, vegetables, nuts, meat. that sort of thing. And if you're going to make cookies or some treat or something, from scratch is generally best, because then you can control the amount of sugar. I usually do half because we don't need that whole amount of sugar. And I'll do the maple syrup, the coconut sugar, or the honey, so that it's a healthier sugar, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And because for the moms, it's important what they, if they don't cook, it's important what they're giving to their kids because that affects their moods as well.
100%. It affects their mood. It affects their energy. It affects how they do in school. It affects their sleep. I mean, so much is affected by food. And again, I think we need to break past the mindset that it's only about weight. It's about health and life and
No,
everything.
no, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition is all about having a food that actually your body needs and energy and everything. So it's not about just getting full or anything. It's giving your body energy, your brain energy, all the things that it needs. It's not about the way I see it as well. It's not about eating as much as actually giving your body what it needs to function.
Yes, because you think about everything our bodies do for us, and they're amazing. I mean, if you didn't have your body, what would your life look like? You wouldn't be breathing, you wouldn't be walking, you wouldn't be talking, we wouldn't be conversing, we wouldn't have kids. I mean, our bodies are amazing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and that's why the food is so important because it goes through your stomach and then all the things that your body needs, it takes out of there. So that's amazing as well. Well, what are the other things that are really important in when you eat? Besides you were saying what the food is, the portion, what else you have to pay attention to?
I think the state that you're eating in is really important. You know, you want to be relaxed and you want to be really present with your food. I think a lot of us have habits of eating out of boredom or stress, and it's really about the relationship with food and tuning into your body and connecting with it, and again, not eating in that stressed out state, because that doesn't serve your body. It doesn't get the nourishment that it needs that way. So maybe if you've had a hard day, sit down and take some deep breaths, maybe smell some lavender, go for a walk, do something to kind of settle yourself so that you're not eating in a stressed state.
Mm-hmm. So find something else to do as well, something that you like, positive things to do instead of eating and staying in a place and eating. Well, one thing as well I noticed with cravings, and that was a good for me like aha moment when I was driving and always in the same place I had this craving for donuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it was because I drove past the Dunkin' Donut. And I didn't want to like in reality I didn't want a donut, but I remember like there was one time I did went there with my daughter and we had that we there was a deal that they had going on one time when you decorate your own donut. So
Yeah.
we actually went for experience. I like the experience with the food when you do something active with the food
Mm-hmm.
or something. But now afterwards it was, and I call it location trigger.
Mm-hmm.
When you get the gar- craving for some kind of food in certain locations, and you don't really want the food, but it's just because you're in that place and your brain, I think, brings up the memory of having that food there.
100%. And I think that the businesses know that. That's why they place them where they do, right?
Hmm. So that's again brings up the issue that you have to pay attention why you're eating or why the craving comes in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important. So we talked about what foods not to eat and what foods to eat and all the things. What is other things with connecting exactly to anxiety? That's connected to anxiety. Let's say with adults.
Mm-hmm.
What is something with food and anxiety that's really connected?
You know, I think some of it can be memories or association that we have from childhood that maybe we haven't even thought of. And I think it's those voices maybe that we heard growing up of, oh, you eat too much, you eat too little, and we carry that on, and that creates anxiety in our relationship with food. So I think it's also really important to kind of spend some time thinking about, what messaging do I have around food and where did that come from? And what do I need to do to work through that? Do I need to forgive somebody? Do I need to forgive myself? What do I need to do with this so it doesn't continue to unconsciously hinder me?
Mm-hmm. I like how you just pointed it out. Pay attention what are your family habits of eating that you grow up with, and that's maybe why you're eating this way, and that's what creates your anxiety around the food.
Mm-hmm. And you don't know. I mean, it's so interesting because all we know growing up is what we came from, and then we evolve when we get out of the house and we meet other people and we see what they came from, and it's just so interesting to be like, oh, I didn't know that I did that because of what I was around growing up, and that affected my relationship with food.
Hmm. And I think right now also we were so brainwashed from media
Mm-hmm.
to what to eat, and they
Yeah.
give us wrong information what to eat.
They do, and it drives me bananas. And they have the mentality that it's one size fits all. And so I did this and I had this amazing result, and you should do it too. That totally negates our bio individuality. It negates our season of life. It's not one size fits all. We're all different. We might have similarities, but that's just foolishness to think that I could do exactly what you did and get the exact same result. I'm not you,
Hmm.
you're not me.
Hmm. And we have to really pay attention to that brainwashing that we're getting from the stores and food manufacturers, the amounts of food, the food that they make look like this is the best food for you.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Social media also is up there, I would say, with that influence.
How do you say that?
Because it's just all of the messaging, you can have all of these before and after pictures, and I did this, and it's just fooey. It's fooey, it's fooey, it's fooey.
Hmm. Yeah. So not to look at those images of other people and make yourself look at yourself individually.
Yes. That's the
That is.
key. You know your body best. You're your own best health expert. Stop outsourcing that. Tune into what's in here in the way that you're made, and that's where the answers are.
Hmm. But most people still don't have that though. They don't have the
Mhm.
connection to knowing what they like. So they have to what what would be like the questionnaire still to go back. We said like get to know what
Mhm.
is good for you, but what is more specific question? Can you make a list of foods like what I feel are good for me and what I feel is not good for me? Make like a two lists or something.
100%. I love to tell people a great thing to do is eat something and see how you feel afterwards. I mean, the food is either going to energize you and make you feel amazing, or it's going to deplete you and you're going to feel exhausted. And so you can do an energy experiment over a couple of days and just see how foods affect your energy and your mood, and journal it so you can document it. And then when you're done, you can go back and kind of connect the dots. Oh, on this day, I had protein for breakfast. I felt really energized. The next day, I had carbs. I didn't have as much energy. So you kind of know that maybe your body needs more protein in the morning.
Hmm. I have a different podcast as well. I do with Men's Guide to Happiness,
Mm.
and that person there, he said that the way he did, he called it A to B uh, example something, and he took one food item and he didn't eat it for 5 days, and he
Mm.
wanted to see nothing, didn't change anything else in his life, just
Yeah.
that one food, and see how he reacted afterwards. Like,
Yeah.
did it change anything in his life?
Mhm. I love
So
that because then you can know that it's only the food.
mhm, exactly. So, like you said, just takes few days of seeing what that food is that you think that it doesn't feel good when you eat it. So try it over few days and see how you feel.
Mhm.
Like, I think even 3 days would be enough. And
Mhm.
if you see that, okay, I really feel, oh, now, not that you eat it, but don't eat it.
Yeah.
Don't eat it and
Mhm.
then see how it feels.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm. And another thing, what he said as well is how fast you eat.
Mhm. Makes a big difference.
Hmm. Like actually chewing your food instead of
Mhm.
just getting it down, just actually paying attention and chewing it.
Yeah, because your stomach doesn't have teeth. And so
Hmm.
if you're not chewing, your body's not really able to digest it. It has to work harder. It's not, it takes your energy.
Hmm. Exactly. So with working with teenagers, they have a lot of anxiety
Mhm.
towards food.
Mhm.
So did that starts from childhood or just teenager years? Do you see more child how young they usually start thinking about food in this way?
I think it's childhood. I mean, if you think back to like earliest memories of food, I have a friend who remembers her mom nursing her and she must have bit her or something. And so the mom flicked her. And that is a early association with
Oh
food.
wow.
I have another, friend who talks about how when you're feeding children and you do the airplane game and the child closes their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
that's their way of saying, I'm full, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
But what do? We're like, one more bite, open up. And we kind of force them. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I think it goes back to childhood. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I was potty trained using sweets. So for me, I thought, oh, food is a reward. When I do something right, I get a treat. I'm a dog.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's
Exactly.
childhood and we carry that with us.
Mm-hmm. The way what I do as well with my daughter, I don't when I'm having sweets or something like this or with a dinner, I don't always offer the sweets for the child because she knows if she feels that she wants the sweets, she will come and ask for it.
Yes.
But now when I say, "Do you want it?" Of course they're gonna say, "Yes, I
Yes.
want candy" or something like this. So you're kind of forcing them having all those sweets
Mm-hmm.
instead of having them choose when they. Of course, when they kind of start asking sweets all
Yes.
the time, that's different. But she knows that it's available when she wants it, so she doesn't want it most of the time because I
Mm-hmm.
don't force it on her.
And I think that's super healthy because the other thing we can do is we can restrict and withhold. And then that makes us want it all the more. So I love that she knows it's there. She has the choice and the ability to choose if she wants it or not.
Hmm. And I think with adults, maybe that goes to myself as well. Like that's maybe why I don't want it all the time because I know I can have it when I do want it. So when I don't want it, I don't want it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that goes back to like if I eat 90% of the good way, 90% of the time I eat good way, then I don't feel guilty of that 10% when I eat something different.
Yeah. And that's awesome. That's amazing that there's no guilt with food or no shame because those feelings aren't good. We don't want to feel that way
Hmm.
about food.
Hmm. Because I remember years ago when I did had that guilt feeling. Yeah, I remember having that guilt feeling when I was like, "Oh my God, I don't want to eat this. Why did I eat it?" You know,
That's not worth it.
Mm-mm. Not worth to have that feeling like, "Why did I eat it?" It's
Mm-mm.
just, I think, habit, but you have to train.
Yeah.
But habits, I think, food habits, still, Melissa, are hard for people to train.
They are, because again, it's a necessity, and we don't view it as a relationship. We don't think about having a relationship with food. We don't think about how we relate to it or what it does for us or when we use it. We don't think about those things because we just know we need to eat to survive. And I think that maybe we need to dive a little bit deeper into that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we have to understand about food. Most important thing, you have to understand the food and understand how we're eating and paying attention actually what we're doing. And then what
Bingo.
can. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that leads to connection to anxiety, where you're actually paying attention what you're eating, why you're eating. And then what you're eating is complete with connected to anxiety. I think what you're eating is a third one. First, you have to understand why and how. That's
100%.
cool. Yeah, that's cool. Well, Melissa, tell us more about what you do and the services that you provide as well. I'm gonna put your website down here as well, so
Okay.
people know how to contact you.
Thank you. Yeah, I help women and teen girls find freedom from the struggle with food. I have an amazing 12-week program called Finding Freedom from the Food Struggle, where we dive into that. We dive into the relationship with food and maybe where those habits are that we don't want to keep having. We don't know why we have them. Figure out, how to listen to your body, really everything that we talked about today, so you can be free from that struggle with food and you can enjoy food and enjoy your body and enjoy your life, because life's too short to not be happy with those things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very good. And all the links for Melissa are on the bottom as well. And the website is here on the screen. You can start from there. And there's some other information and links in the description as well for the viewers. So that you can look up that. Okay, very good information. I think that's what people with anxiety need to know to start changing their nutritional habits. So,
Makes a big difference. And it's not super hard. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of work and effort and energy, just making really small changes. Small hinges open wide doors. I think you'll be surprised at the impact really small things can do for you.
exactly, small things are important. Well, one thing before we are gonna end with some of the other things, but I ask all because I do the happiness podcast and I teach happiness and everything. So, what is I ask all the questions in different episodes. What is your definition of happiness? So, not that everybody else thinks happiness is, but what is happiness for you?
Gosh, that's a good one. I think happiness is being secure and confident and rooted in who you are and what you stand for, and really just knowing that and knowing that you are capable and confident as you are, that you're enough and that you matter.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And name maybe about three things that things or activities, like really specific things, maybe day things that like you can do every day that make you feel happy.
Oh gosh, I love to exercise. I think
Mm-hmm.
exercise makes me happy. I love to talk to people. I love to connect. I'm really social, so that makes me happy. And I think just this is going to sound maybe odd, but like I love when our whole family is together at night and we're sitting around the dinner table and we're talking about our day and we're just really connecting over a good meal. That makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that dinner time. I just like felt it like, oh my God, I can imagine all this. Everybody's happily together and enjoying the moment. So that's cool.
Not
That's
all
cool.
of the time because I do have teenagers, but that's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have to strive for it. It doesn't always happen the right way, but you're focused on what you're looking for, what matters.
Because last
And
night's
if it
dinner was a
does,
whole gong show. I'll just tell you that right now.
Mhm. And if it doesn't happen exactly the way you planned it to happen, that's okay as well. You just
Yep.
have to learn not to feel anxious about if things are not going the way you planned it to go. You just go with the flow in that moment.
Letting go of expectations can be really powerful in those moments.
Exactly. So, Melissa, is there any closing thoughts as well for this nutrition and anxiety connection?
I guess I just want people to know, like, I know when I was really just anxious and overwhelmed, I felt like that was all that there was. And I felt like I couldn't do anything to change and that I would always be that way. And I was surprised at how much changing my nutrition changed everything for me. So I just want other people to know that they have the power to do that and that it can change so much for you that you might not even be aware of. So I just really want to leave people with hope and the knowledge that they can do this and it could really be a game changer. So hopefully some inspiration as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking as well, because you helping other people, is it's important to reach out for help in those moments. You have to absolutely understand that you don't have to do all those things by yourself.
No,
Reaching out
that
for mm-hmm,
I think that
reaching out
causes
for
more
help.
stress.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Reach out for help. There's a lot of help available. Don't try to just struggle to do it by yourself. Mm-hmm.
It's a great word.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Really good, Melissa. We got a lot of information for our viewers. I hope you all like the information that you got, and you can apply. You can actually apply all those things starting today. You don't have to wait for some other time. Just start from today with little steps. Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was great to chat with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for all the viewers, and apply all those little tips to your life and settle. And you can control the anxiety. Maybe it doesn't usually, everybody still has anxiety to some point in their life, but you were able to have less anxiety and you're able to control your anxiety for sure. Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye, Melissa. Thank you.